Thank you so much, Sheikh Ahmed Jihan. That was wonderful. Not only was important money being raised for our brothers and sisters in Palestine, but it was also inspirational to listen. Alhamdulillah. May Allah reward you, and may Allah also reward and bless everyone who was able to contribute, inshallah. And those of us who were not, inshallah, as the Sheikh was saying, we will be put in a position where we can make dua and contribute in that way. It can make all the difference, inshallah. I want to introduce Brother Sami Hamdi. I encountered Brother Sami Hamdi the first time on a podcast. And that podcast is an excellent podcast. It is The Thinking Muslim. If you have not listened before to the Thinking Muslim podcast, I very much urge you to look it up and listen to the excellent episodes. The host of the Thinking Muslim is a brother called Muhammad Jalal. And Muhammad Jalal is a rather quiet and reserved person. And Brother Sami is not. And it's quite interesting to listen to their conversations. In the meantime, he has been on there more than once, and it makes for a very interesting conversation between the two of them. They're very different, and there's a lot to be learned. In recent times, Brother Sami has advanced to one of the world's very prominent Muslim public speakers, and what strikes me and impresses me about him is his knowledge, his deep knowledge on political issues. But that's not it. It's not it by itself. It's his knowledge on political issues combined with his genuine passion and his sincere love for his Muslim Ummah. It is that combination, the knowledge with his love for the Muslim Ummah, that makes him who he is. Let me also give you a bit more of a formal background. Brother Sami is the managing director of the International Interest, a global risk and intelligence company. He advises governments on the geopolitical dynamics of Europe and the MENA region, and he has significant expertise in advising companies on commercial issues related to volatile political environments and their implications on market entry, market expansion, and managing of stakeholders. Brother Sami is also featured as a commentator on Al Jazeera, on Sky News, on BBC, on TRT World, and on many other outlets. Mashallah, he is a very, very accomplished brother, and I won't say his age, but he's still very young, mashallah, and alhamdulillah, which makes his accomplishments even more impressive. May Allah make all our youth here and elsewhere equally successful, inshallah. But more important than being successful, they shall be, like Brother Sami, always driven by purpose, inshallah. Driven by divine purpose, inshallah. Now I want to welcome Brother Sami to give us a speech, inshallah. When he's done with the speech, we'll have questions and answers, inshallah. As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, seems everybody's a bit down a bit, so I promise to be quick, inshallah. As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, jazakumullah khair for having me. Jazakumullah khair for inviting me to a place with sunshine, with clear skies,
Many people say you keep celebrating the weather wherever you go. I tell these people that they are ingrates who don't appreciate what they have. And when they grow up in a city where you get 5 days of summer every year and those 5 days don't come at the same time, you will understand why I'm appreciative of it. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Rasulullah. Always after an introduction such as that, a generous introduction for which I am grateful for, it's important to remember that Allah says in Surah Fatir, "Man kana yuridu al-izzata falillahi al-izzatu jami'a." Those who seek glory, let them know all glory belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah elevates whom He wills and humiliates whom He wills. What you have resonated with is not Sami Hamdi. What you've resonated with is a call to justice that the Palestinian cause embodies. What has resonated is your fitrah with a call for justice that Islam has made the basis on which the message was based upon. Allah elevates those who stand for justice and humiliates those who abandon the justice. And in this I am aware that as long as our words are dedicated to the elevation of just causes, Allah will continue to elevate us. And the moment our words say otherwise, Allah will humiliate us just as quickly as He elevated us. Falhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Often when you're going around and pleading with an ummah to recognize its power, you find yourself having to try to repackage the same content out of fear that the ummah might have heard it all before. And this caused me a bit of a crisis at one point during the tour. Sami, you need new content, bro. I told him, what do you think haqq is? A trend, like a hashtag, subhanallah. Quran has been the same for 1400 years. No one asked for a new book, subhanallah. Look how everybody cringed with that example. Because you realize the fallacy and how wrong it is to hear the call for justice and ask for it to be repackaged in a different way. I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying it's the conclusion that I came, which is that you really start to appreciate the meaning when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَى. I used to read this ayah and think that it meant, subhanallah, walhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, which is partly true. I used to think it was, remember to do your salat on time, which is also partly true. I used to think it meant, akhi, look after, فَذَكِّرْ, remember the benefits of fasting Mondays and Thursdays. But it also means, remember to encourage each other in that which is good. Remember to raise awareness for what is just. Remember to keep going for when you feel like the message is becoming repetitive. فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَى. Remember, for remembrance is what benefits you. And the reason why remembrance benefits you here is because it is true that many in the community are feeling fatigue. Now I'm a bit baffled by it, but I'm willing to accept that some people are feeling fatigue. But let me explain to you why I'm baffled by the concept of fatigue in a community with regards to the Palestinian cause. Fatigue implies that you are making efforts that aren't producing fruit. That you are making efforts that aren't producing the outcomes that you want, and therefore you are tired of putting those efforts in because they're not producing the outcome that you want. Tiredness comes from the basis that you believe that your actions are not producing a consequence. The reason why I find that baffling is because when Biden is desperately looking for a masjid in Michigan to receive him, he's doing it because there is a concern amongst his team that Muslims might punish him in the November elections. And he wants to find out how organized is this Muslim bloc so that I know whether I should be worried or not. The reason Biden has this feeling is because of the actions that you took that shook the White House itself into making Kamala Harris come out with a video saying, we're now announcing a new initiative to counter Islamophobia. Ibadallah, do you think that Kamala Harris did it because she suddenly had a change of heart with regards to Palestine? She did it because the Democrats got together and they said, guys, I don't know if these Muslims are organized or not, but I'm hearing very loud voices coming from Muslims. So just in case they're considering punishing a genocide, let's throw them a bone and show them that we pretend we care. Then Democrats sent out an email saying that Trump wants to bring back the Muslim ban. We, the Democrats, stand against the Muslim ban. So don't punish us for the genocide. They didn't say that part, but that's the translation, the tafsir of the email. Don't punish us for the genocide if you want to be able to see your relatives. Don't punish us for the genocide if you want to see Sami for the next 4 years. For those worried about not seeing Sami next 4 years, I assure you, don't worry about me. 4 years will go very quickly, inshallah. If it's because of me, don't put me in the calculation.
Come to London.
Bismillah, come. It's a very elegant city. It's smaller than America, but it is what it is. When I went back to London last time for 10 days, my wife said, welcome home. I told her, Sumaya. She said to me, what's wrong with you? I said, I feel claustrophobic. Oh, America's big. Subhanallah. Big roads, big cars, big food, big chicken and waffles. And astaghfirullah, I'll tell you something horrific. The brother who took me for the chicken and waffles, he picked up the syrup, you know, the sweet syrup, and he poured it over the chicken. I've never seen such a bid'ah in my life. Astaghfirullah. Like no boundaries, no respect, absolutely no respect. Astaghfirullah. Every time I remember it. There should be boundaries. In America, when you order a medium portion, it's London equivalent of large. When you order large, I think, who can finish this? The Democrats say that the Muslim ban, we will not impose it, even though it was originally Obama's idea. And I know, because the reason I had to apply for a visa is because Obama drew up a list of countries where if you visited, even just to see your friend, as I did when I went to Khartoum in 2013, you had to apply for a visa, you couldn't apply for an ESTA. And Trump was so inspired by Obama's idea. Oh, Obama. In 2009, he went to Cairo, he gave a speech. I was a university student. And we heard his speech and we saw the first black African-American president. And I remember a guy next to me said, you know what, Sami? I think this is the turning point. And I said to him, you know what, mashallah, his speech is amazing. He even quoted Quran. Yeah, man. And you know what? I think Barack Obama is Burak Hussein Bu'amama. And therefore he'll understand how we feel. And of course, Burak Hussein Bu'amama, he ended up doing what he did and helped to perform and prepare the Muslim ban. The reason why I struggle with the idea of fatigue with regards to what's happening in the Palestinian cause is because CNN reported that Biden told Netanyahu that the constant bombardment of the videos showing the atrocities means I can't support you for months, you probably only have a few weeks. The reason why I can't understand the fatigue is because Eli Cohen, the Israeli foreign minister, said 1 month ago that we probably have only about 2 weeks left before the international pressure comes to bear down on us. And sure enough, 1 month after Eli Cohen made his statement, the ICJ launched an extraordinary ruling. If you had told me 5 months ago that Israel would stand trial in an international court for genocide, I'd have told you, shh, somebody might call you anti-Semitic. 15 judges to 2 ruled that Israel not only has to stand trial for genocide, but not even Genocide Joe and the United States of America could leverage its power to get the case kicked out. Why? Because the shift in public opinion brought about by your efforts, by your mobilization, by your protests, by your social media, by your campaigning, by you calling your representatives, by you refusing to be quiet, that shift in public opinion made Macron call for a ceasefire when Biden didn't want him to, made the Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium call for sanctions on Israel, made the Spanish government announce it's ready to recognize a Palestinian state, made Australia refuse to join the Red Sea Alliance, made even Saudi Arabia and UAE, wama adrak, refuse to join the Red Sea Alliance, made Spain come out and say that we need an independent foreign policy from the United States, made Josep Borrell, the chief foreign policy chief of the European Union, announce and give a press conference to say that 27 member states are now drawing up a list of consequences to impose on Israel because they rejected a two-state solution. That made the 27 member states look at Eli Cohen, the Israeli foreign minister, when he visited them and presented a map. And he said, I have the solution for Palestine. Let's put them on an artificial island that we will build like the UAE has the Palm and these places. And Eli Cohen went back and said, I don't understand why they were so horrified. All 27 member states looked at me like I was speaking something so strange and so weird. And these 27 member states were so upset that they decided to break ranks with the Israelis and announce that they are going to pursue consequences towards the Israelis. The Ummah said it is tired and it has fatigue. How can you have fatigue when you are making the heads of states buckle? When you are changing the foreign policy and making them buckle? When you are making Blinken buckle, Biden buckle, Macron separate from the US? You are the ones who brought that about. Takbir! Takbir! The views expressed by the speaker are the speaker's own and do not reflect those of the organization or those who invited me or those in South Carolina. This is just me, Rabbi Raza from London, and and I like America. I've grown to really love it. I've been all over. I'm more American than most Americans. I've been to nearly every single state now in America. Bismillah, mashallah. Seattle was a beautiful city. California, sun. Even the East Coast is nice, even though New York is a bit of a gritty jungle, but it is what it is. So please, I'd like the opportunity to come back to America again. And barakallahu fikum. In any case. I want to emphasize this point about why I find the fatigue so strange. Some of you might be listening and saying, Sami is exaggerating about our power. That it must be other grandiose foreign policy moves, perhaps by Muslim nations, that made the difference. Ibadallah, one of the Israeli representatives who appears on British media met with 12 TikTokers last week and offered them a financial package to spread Israeli propaganda. Where are they asking these TikTokers to spread the propaganda? Where? On TikTok. Who uses TikTok? You, the children, the people, the ordinary people. Somebody said children. I can't lie. Zinedine Zidane clips on the football and Ronaldinho, and there is another brother, mashallah, African brother. I recommend you following him. He has these reminders. Yo, bro, don't lose faith in Allah. And I tell him, I won't. But and you do like and repost. And sometimes you have, there's an account about a chiropractor where he goes, got a back problem? I'm a chiro. And then someone did a parody. They go to a car mirror, the mirror of the car, and it's not in its right place. And he goes and they're mocking that. So they go, they click the mirror. So I love those kind of memes, videos, and that kind of stuff. So you said children, but alhamdulillah, I'll accept that I'm a child as well in this regard. The point here being is, who are the Israelis paying? They're paying TikTokers to put information where? On TikTok. To target who? To target who? To target the ordinary people, not the heads of state. Why would you spend all that money and the highest levels of state sit with TikTok influencers to target ordinary people? What is the power they see in ordinary people? What is the power they see in you? What is the fear they have of you? What is the threat they fear you will manifest? Which means that they are spending billions on a PR campaign that, let's be frank, you brought for free. They're spending billions on a PR campaign that you brought for free. Who got paid to retweet any content on social media? No one did. They're trying to pay billions. Even when I opened the Yaqeen podcast, because somebody said, Sami, that teacup you have at the end was very English. I said, what teacup? So I said, let me go find it. When I opened Yaqeen podcast on YouTube, what's the first advert I see? IDF. They were even paying to put it before Yaqeen podcast. Not only that, when I wanted to do some, astaghfirullah, I had to listen to Saud al-Shurayn, Surah Taha, just to be like, I've watched the advert, I need to clean my ears. They even put the IDF advert before the Quran of Saud al-Shurayn. They spend billions to do the Bismillah before Saud al-Shurayn does it. Astaghfirullah. The point being, when you tell me that you're fatigued, not you specifically, but those who say, I'm tired that we're doing these efforts and it's not bringing about the outcomes, I'm telling you that if you had not moved, they would have been able to commit the genocide in the way that they wanted. And the reason they're buckling over each other, the reason why they went from no ceasefire to humanitarian pause, to a hostage truce, to now talking about low intensity warfare, the reason why Blinken is breaking all of those Democrat climate change policies by making trip after trip. And listen, I've flown over the Atlantic to the Middle, because for some reason when I come to the US, they make me go Istanbul first, and Istanbul, Turkish. I confess Turkish Airlines is really nice. It's true. But after 3-4 hours into the flight, it's not a thing when you've still got 7-8 hours left of the flight. Blinken is flying all of those hours past Turkey to the Middle East just to find a way to preserve that genocide. But why is Blinken going? Blinken is going because he realizes the Democrats are falling behind in the polls. He realizes that as a result of the shift in public opinion, Biden is falling behind in the polls to his Republican rivals. Some of you will say, what do we have to do with the polls? Let me tell you what you have to do with the polls. When the Gallup poll came out on the 26th of October, 27 October, it showed that Biden was behind the Republican rivals. And the analysis of the pollsters was that the fascinating thing about these polls was not that Biden was behind, but the reasons Biden was behind. They said, although the economy might have played a role, they said the shocking thing about the polls was they were being affected by Genocide Joe's stance on Palestine and Israel. And they said the reason that was shocking is because usually when a president is falling behind in the polls over a foreign policy issue, it's usually because American troops are dying. Our boys are dying for a cause that we don't understand why we're fighting. And that's why as the death toll mounts, the people turn against the president and they say, bring our boys home. But there are no American troops officially in Gaza. So Biden is falling in the polls, not because the Americans are self-interested and worried about their boys abroad. They're falling in the polls because the Americans are genuinely changing their minds with regards to Palestine and Gaza. They are genuinely changing their minds after the information that they've seen that has penetrated their social media as a result of you who kept amplifying the voice of the Palestinians. Let's go one step further, you who tell me that you are tired or suffering from fatigue. The reason why Biden is falling in the polls, why public opinion is shifting, is because of social media. And I explain what I mean. Because I asked tech guys, they explained this to me. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. I'm relaying to you what they said to me. Social media algorithms, they promote what? What is popular, right? So when I first joined, it was showing me what was popular until it learns what you like. When it learns what you like, it starts to show you only what you like. So when I first joined Twitter, when Elon Musk took over Twitter and added the homepage, and when I joined TikTok, after my sister pleaded with me and said, this is the future, don't be left behind, I told her, Zainab, I'm not watching people dance in the night and wasting my life away. I'm not doing it. There's no way. She said to me, you have to join. So in the end, I said, Yallah, I don't want to be like those, I'm still a very young man, alhamdulillah. I don't want to be old before I've even hit 40. Subhanallah. When you initially join the social media, because it doesn't know what you like, it shows you what is popular around the world. So when I joined TikTok, I saw that Kim Kardashian divorced Kanye West. I saw Love Island issues. I saw, all these other things, scrolling through the TikTok and learning things that, quite frankly, I wish I'd never learned. I told my sisters and my friends, how do I change my algorithm? They said, teach it what you want it to show you. So I searched Zinedine Zidane. Football. By football, I mean the football. Not your one where you grab the ball with the hands and you throw with the hands and you grab with the hands and you throw with the hand and you catch with the hand and you run with the ball in your hand and you touch down with the hand and then you call it football. I'm talking about football, which you guys call soccer. Somebody told me that soccer came from the British, which might be true. Apparently it's like an abbreviation. But that still doesn't justify how you can call that game football. I'm just saying. In any case, so you teach the algorithm. You put in, okay, I want to watch, politics, news, Quran, motivational stuff, that kind of thing. Eventually, TikTok learns what you like. When TikTok learns what you like, it only shows you what you like. It creates the bubble for you. You who tell me that you are getting tired or you feel fatigued or you feel that your efforts are not producing fruit because all you're doing is retweeting and liking at nighttime like me, where you scroll through before you sleep and you think, Hasanat, Ajr, tree in Jannah, inshallah, this one, I truly believe that's what I'm doing. For something to penetrate the bubble of the algorithm, it can't just be popular. It has to be so stupendously popular that the algorithm gets so giddy that it shows you something from outside your bubble. That it says this is so popular that although you've taught the algorithm to show you what you like, you need to see this. The way the algorithm determines it is very capitalistic. However many people are retweeting and sharing it. If it's millions, that's not enough. The reason Biden is falling in the polls and there's a shift in public opinion is because when the Palestinians said, Ya Ummati, hear our call. Ya Ummati, raise our voices. O people of conscience, raise our voices. Not millions, billions around the world started sharing and retweeting and liking and commenting. The algorithm got so giddy that instead of showing you what you wanted on your algorithm, the first 10 videos were Palestine. The first 10 tweets were Palestine on that homepage that Elon Musk put. And the reaction of the ordinary American who had never followed Palestine and Israel wasn't, what on earth is this doing on my feed? It was when they heard the truth, their fitrah that Allah put in non-Muslims as well, resonated with, where they said, I don't believe what I'm seeing. I thought Israelis were good guys. They're killing babies. They're bombing hospitals. They're destroying homes. That woman doesn't look like hummus. Neither do the children. Kids are having their limbs amputated without any... I have to share this. So David shared it with Sarah. Sarah shared it with Michelle. Michelle showed it to Jeremy. Jeremy showed it to Steve. Steve showed it to Dante. Dante showed it to Giorgio. Giorgio showed it to Francois. Francois showed it to Fatah. And it's kept getting shared and shared and shared until one day a girl picks up her TikTok and she says in American, because I know American's not English, I'm speaking English, but if you get stuck, just let me know, I speak American. She says, she posts a TikTok and she says, I want to understand how it is that these Palestinians are suffering a genocide, but they still say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. I want to understand why they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I want to understand where the resilience comes from, why they still resist, why they refuse to leave their land. I want to know why, and I have determined, she says, that I think it's because of their book that is the Quran. So I'm every day on TikTok, I'm going to do a live, and we're going to go through one page of the Quran. 2 weeks later, she does a live with a hijab and she says, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. A girl in LA, Los Angeles, lovely, blue sky, sunny, 25 degrees Celsius on the 25th of November, sunny LA. LA, for those who want to appreciate and understand, you probably heard this story before, but I say it just to, because my heart still hurts about it. When I was invited to go and speak at the Mass LA convention, initially I said to myself, it's far. Like you Americans, you're far. You're on the other side. Like I can go to France in 1 hour, in 45 minutes. I can be in Germany in 1 hour 15 flight. I can be in Zagreb, Croatia, within 2 hours. I can go to Sarajevo, Bosnia in 2 hours, 20 minutes. I can go to Turkey within 3 hours. You guys, just to go Detroit to Arizona is 4 hours. Astaghfirullah. When I flew and I took off from rainy London, cloudy, and I took off and I said, normal, adi, this is winter. I'm used to it. I lived it all my life. And then as you're landing, you see sunshine. And the pilot stops the plane and he says, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to LA. It's clear skies, something Fahrenheit, because I know you guys, you like everything big. So you weren't happy with Celsius. You have to do everything bigger. 100 degree Fahrenheit, 78, it's 80. You weren't content with how people do things, which is 20 degrees, 15. I heard the Fahrenheit, I had no idea what it was translated to Celsius. And I stepped out and I looked at the weather and I said, I checked the date, 25th November, this is winter. Allahumma. I will never spend winter anywhere else. I did not know this stuff could exist here in winter. When I went to LA, to Mass LA, there is a girl who did a TikTok video where she said, I grew up in LA in a Zionist environment and I never ever in my life had heard the Palestinian voices. But as a result, she says, of TikTok, حَفَظَهَا اللَّهُ وَرَعَاهَا وَرَفَعَ مَقَامَهَا. She didn't say that, well, that's me. But you should say Ameen, because if you don't say Ameen and you don't thank what Allah has given you, you might be limited to CNN and BBC, and God forbid that we're ever limited to them as sources of information. Because I think they've become PR companies. The views expressed are the speaker's own and do not reflect those of the organization. This is Sami from London who's expressing these opinions. They didn't ask me what I would say. I didn't tell them what I would say intentionally. And therefore, this is Sami saying it, not anybody else or organization. Just to make that absolutely clear. In any case, she says, as a result of TikTok, I finally heard the Palestinian voices. And note, she says, I can't unsee what I've seen. I'm now dedicating my TikTok account to exposing what the Israelis are doing. Fulfilling the ayah. There's an ayah sometimes we Muslims, for those who feel fatigued, I'm addressing this particular point. You know, sometimes you read the Quran and you read many verses, right? And sometimes, let's be honest, you know, before Jum'ah, when they tell you read Surah Al-Kahf, most people, or some people, Sami sometimes, you know, you read it very, very fast, and you think, got the ajr, done. Even though you probably can't, you don't really indulge in the story or that. To give you an example how ayat can take on new meanings. Not new meanings, it always means, to look at how ayat, you can discover the meanings that they had. In my first year at university, not so long ago, quite a while ago to be honest, but in any case, alhamdulillah. There was two guys, one called Bihar, one called Benjamin. If they're listening to this, shout out, God save the king. Benjamin and Bihar in the first year would debate so hard against each other. Benjamin wasn't Muslim at the time. And we would say to Bihar, Bihar, we don't think this is the best way. He said, leave me alone, I'll give him my own da'wah. The following year, Benjamin came to university, but prayed with us as a Muslim. So he's telling us the story, what made him become Muslim. And he says that when he opened the Quran, he came across a verse where Allah says that when they are burnt in the hellfire, we put their skin back on so they might feel the punishment of the hellfire. And we all looked at him and said, Akhi, hang on a second. Are you telling me you became Muslim over a verse to do with hellfire? What on earth is wrong with you? That's actually what we said. And he was like, no, but it's true, it's an amazing ayah. I said, what about this ayah would make somebody convert? I don't get it. He said to me, Sami, how did an illiterate orphan know that the nerves are not in the flesh, they're in the skin? If you don't have the skin, you don't actually feel anything. How did he know? And I said, subhanAllah, I've read that ayah 1001 times and I never, ever, ever, ever thought about it this way. When this Zionist girl said she was going to do a video every day in favor of Palestine after the atrocities that she'd seen the Israelis committed, and that she was Zionist yesterday and Palestinian today, I was sitting in LA, wonderful blue sky, sunny LA, 25 degrees Celsius on the 25th of November. Might have been 27. I tried to do a conversion of the Fahrenheit, which is a big number. Somebody was reading ayat before, the meeting started. And they read the ayat of da'wah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Is there any better speech? The one who calls to Allah, does good deeds and say, I'm from the Muslimin. And then he read the following ayah, and it was the first time I realized that these ayahs follow each other. Even though I know it. وَلَا تَسْتَوِ الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. The good deed and the bad deed are not equal. Here in this ayah, Allah tells you what da'wah feels like and what da'wah produces. Because I'll be honest with you, Buna Muhammad the poet says, we are all reflections true, so I can't talk about me without talking about you. We all go through similar experiences. Let's be honest, when they used to call us out to go and give da'wah, we used to think, you buy Ferrero Rocher or Lindt chocolate, and then you go and you put a Quran on top, and you say, hi neighbor, here you go, would you like to hear about Islam? We say Islam, but they say, oh, Islam, Allah tells you what da'wah can feel like, real da'wah as well can feel like. Even though that is real da'wah, it is true. But there is another version of da'wah as well, which is, وَلَا تَسْتَوِ الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. The good deed and the bad deed are not equal. Allah is saying that your good call to Islam might be met with a bad reaction. The same way our call for Palestine is being met by that backlash. Allah is saying that their tactics are not equal to ours. Ours is good, theirs is bad. We uphold what our teachers taught us, not what they are trying to teach us. Then Allah says, idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Conduct yourself with that which is best. And there is another meaning very similar, which is push back with that which is best. Idfa', like Arabs, and everybody wants to learn Arabic, idfa' al-bab, push the door. Idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Conduct yourself with that which is best. For Allah says, it may be the one who is your enemy today, tomorrow becomes your warmest ally. This Zionist girl in LA went from supporting Israel yesterday to supporting and being one of the loudest on TikTok for Palestine. But Allah tells you who achieves it. He addresses those who say they are tired. Allah says, وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. The ones who achieve it, the only ones who achieve it. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا. The only ones who achieve it. the only ones who achieve the flip, the only ones who get people to change their opinions, the only ones who can make a Zionist become pro-Palestinian, as you all did, you who claim to be tired, not you specifically, those who say it. Those who are able to achieve it are those who are patient. Patient with what? We always assume patience means stay and do nothing. Allah here is saying that patience here is patience with a process that you are becoming tired because it doesn't produce the outcome you want, when in reality it is producing the outcome you need. Ibadallah, we needed those allies. We needed that shift in public opinion. We needed non-Muslims to see the truth of the matter. We needed the Americans to wake up. We needed the Great Awakening. Allah has already decided the outcome, but made it so that the process involves us convincing the non-Muslim American to finally see the truth of Palestine, which is why you're seeing even non-Muslim Americans announce that they will not vote for Genocide Joe. It's because of your da'wah. Celebrate these wins. These wins are valuable because that is what is making Biden buckle. When Biden fell in the polls, to link it all back, even though it sounds like I was going to tell you where my ear is and I've done this. To link it back to the polls, the reason Biden fell in the polls and is falling in the polls is not because of Saudi Arabia, where bin Salman gave Blinken a fatwa to say that Muslims should not talk about Gaza. Make dua, cry for added effect, but don't talk about it. Because if you talk about it, you might turn against your ruler. And if you turn against your ruler, that is a greater crime than standing for justice in Palestine. Don't talk about Gaza because it might turn you against your scholars. Ibadallah, the fatwa from Saudi Arabia, sponsored by the Saudi Crown Prince bin Salman, the views expressed on the speaker's own. I did tell them, don't take pictures with me so that they can do Hajj. So you let them through the border in Jeddah. I encourage you to let them through. They have nothing to do with me. I'm just passing by. I'm just passing by. I'm not even here 24 hours. Tomorrow I'm in Tampa. I'm just saying. Leave it between us, Habibi, please. Huh? For those of you who are going to Umrah, inshallah, a piece of advice before I continue. If I had known in 2014 that it would be my last time for many, 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 many years, almost a decade now, if I had known it would be my last time praying in the Masjid al-Nabawi, I wouldn't have prayed Fajr in the hotel. You know the laziness sometimes, astaghfirullah al-azim. Shaitan whispers in your ear. The Imam, they tell you pray as if it's your last prayer. You're like, yeah, astaghfirullah. It's true. So if you get a chance to go to Umrah, treat it as if it's your last time. You don't know what will come next. The reason why I'm emphasizing that you brought the shift in public opinion is because when Blinken went to Saudi Arabia, he got the fatwa. Not only from one Imam, he got it from everybody. The khutbah of the Medina al-Munawwara was, make dua for Gaza, but don't talk about it. Abdurrahman al-Sudais, the chief Imam of Mecca, said, Ya ibadallah, I will give you a lovely dua for Gaza, but don't talk about it because it's a fitna, he called it. It's a fitna that will turn you against your ruler. And Imam in Sulaiman Rajhi Mosque in Riyadh came out and said, Ya ibadallah, our hearts genuinely hurt for Gaza, but don't talk about it. Because your analyses, in his words, are like those of slugs. They're burdensome on the ruler. The ruler knows what he's doing. Ibadallah, the ruler knows what he's doing. So much so, that when Israel cuts off the connection to Gaza, on the day that it begins, on the night that it begins its ground offensive, trust that the ruler has a hikmah when he brings Shakira to dance on the same night. You think I'm joking, I'm being serious. She danced on the same night the ground offensive began. When Turki al-Sheikh, the head of the General Entertainment Authority, was asked, why are we hosting concerts when there's a genocide taking place in Gaza? He replied on a Facebook post that you can find easily. He says, name me one concert in the world that's been cancelled because of a political event. Of course, they cancelled it later when the Emir of Kuwait died, Allah yarahmu, because they knew if they didn't cancel it, it would cause a diplomatic crisis. Because the Arab saying goes, you don't hold a wedding when your neighbor has a janazah. So, for Gaza, no, but the fatwa from Saudi Arabia is, don't talk about Gaza. If you want to follow it, follow it. If you want to follow Islam, then keep talking. The UAE gave a statement. Abdullah bin Zayed, the foreign minister, tweeted, I spoke to my good friend Blinken about the situation in Gaza. 2 hours later, UAE issued a statement blaming the Palestinians. and saying that nothing will make us turn back from the Abraham Accords. Some people ask Sami, why do you keep mentioning our own brothers instead of focusing on those committing the genocide? It's because I truly believe that the Muslim world can stop the genocide tomorrow if it wanted to. If Saudi Arabia tomorrow said there's no normalization talks, genocide is a red line, the Americans would panic and they would scramble to Riyadh and they would get the Israelis to stop. If UAE kicked out the Israeli ambassador, I think that the Americans would panic and they would say, normalization above everything. Don't ruin it over a petty genocide that you're doing in Gaza. But they choose not to do so for their own interests. The reason why I mention that is to highlight and emphasize this point, that you who might be feeling tired, you who might be feeling fatigued, you who might be feeling your efforts are not bringing about an outcome, the reason Biden is panicking and falling in the polls is exclusively because of the ordinary person. It's exclusively because the Ummah is moving. It's exclusively because the dawah is being heard. It's exclusively because non-Muslims are hearing you who have amplified the voice of the Palestinians and they are saying, you know what? You got a point. Why are we spending $3.8 billion on issues abroad when I can't even afford healthcare? And to emphasize this point, when I landed in LA, it was the first time I'd been to LA, which was 3 months ago in November. I had only been to America once beforehand. When I landed in LA, of course, you know, you grow up seeing Americans in the movies. And I confess, when I came to America and found that you guys actually talk like they do in the movies, for me it was an incredible experience. There will be moments where Americans will talk to me and I'll zone out mid-conversation. And the reason why, because in my mind, I'll just be talking to myself, oh my God, they actually talk like this. It's so incredible. And then when I come back, everybody's quiet and I realize someone's asked a question and I haven't heard it because I zoned out. So when I landed in LA, of course, you want to go see it. You want to see the stuff you saw in the movies. I watched Beverly Hills Cop, you know, growing up, Eddie Murphy. You know, I wanted to see what I've seen in the movies. So where's the first place I wanted to go? I wanted to go see, you know, that wooden Hollywood, Holly. Honestly, your branding is amazing. I actually drove 1 hour to climb up a hill just to see 9 letters on a hill. And when I saw it, I was like, Wallahi Naseem, your branding is impeccable. I actually spent my day coming here. And it's just a bunch of letters. We have views like this in the UK, except for the sea, but yeah. Khalas, since I'm here, yalla, selfie, yalla. Guys, I went to LA and I saw that Hollywood. Oh my God, you saw it? Yeah, bro. It's not as impressive as I thought it was, but anyway. Then I said, take me to Beverly Hills. When I went to Beverly Hills, they say it's like a rich area, right? And you go through, that's where Jimmy Kimmel does his show. And I'm like, oh. I was shocked to find in Beverly Hills a row of tents. And as we passed those row of tents, there's a huge like parking lot. I can't believe I'm saying parking lot. I'm speaking American. There's a huge parking area. And it's just full of tents. And I said, I don't understand, like, are these hippies or like, he said, no, they're homeless people. I said, subhanallah. So Biden wants $14 billion to give to the genocide in Israel when he could spend that money fixing the homeless issue. But from Biden's perspective, genocide, homelessness, dude, it's a no-brainer. Genocide. Now I'm going to tell you something that you might find fascinating. And listen, I promise you, every word is true. I know you're going to struggle to believe it, but I promise you, every word is true. In the United Kingdom, if I wake up one morning and I go, that was a bit of a chesty cough, no? Sumaya, hear it. My wife, I tell Sumaya. I kid you not. My wife will say, go to the doctor and just get it checked so you have peace of mind. I know, it sounds blasphemous here in America, but it's true. And what I do is, and you'll never believe it, I pick up the phone. I call the surgery and I speak to the secretary. I need an appointment with the doctor. Why? I coughed and it felt chesty. Okay, anything else? Can you not hear it? They'll be like, there's not an appointment for the next like 2-3 weeks. I'll wait 2-3 weeks. But if there's a cancellation, let me know. And there's always a cancellation. If there's a cancellation, let me know. Sure, no problem. They'll call me back. The doctor will call me on the phone first. The doctor will say hello on the next day or like 2 days later. Hello, hi, how are you? Yes, so you said you have a cough. And I go, I haven't coughed for 2 days, but just in case. Doctor, I need to come and see you. No, you don't. Doctor, I need to. I have an opening Friday, 3 o'clock. Can you come? Sure. And I go to the doctor. I know it's unbelievable so far, but I promise you this is true. The doctor will do the thingy, you know, with the stethoscope. Cough for me, please. There's nothing wrong with you. Doctor, I think there is. There's nothing wrong with you. Doctor, I asked Sheikh Google. Google says I might have the start of cancer. And if I get it early, I can prevent the worst of it. You don't have cancer, just get out. Are you sure? Yes. And I leave the surgery. Sumaya, I don't have cancer, I'm fine. And I have what's called the peace of mind. The peace of mind. So you can imagine my horror when I came to America in 2018 and I went to Raleigh, not too far, for a wedding. My friend married an American Yemeni girl. Didn't do a wedding in the UK, wanted to do it in America. He said to me, there's 400 of her lot, there's only 8 of us, you need to come and support me. I told him, why don't we just bring her here? He said, no, we have to go there. Why? Because it's America. In the car, her brother vomited once. When he vomited, my attitude clicked in, right? For peace of mind, let's go see a doctor. And he went, no! And he vomited a second time at the suggestion. He didn't actually, but we suggested and he vomited like 5 minutes later. We had a doctor in the group who said, you know, this might be serious. This could be something itis. And we went, oh, we Googled it. Oh, that looks serious, you know. Are you coughing blood? No, I'm not coughing blood, but he vomited again. So we told the brothers, listen, this looks quite serious. We should call an ambulance. And they went, no! I was like, why? They said, we have to pay for it here. I said, you stingy brothers, all over $100. They said, who gets ambulance for $100 here? It's at least... Biden said that you could have healthcare like His Majesty's government of the United Kingdom. Instead, he said, I want to give that 14 billion for genocide and ethnic cleansing. The Americans, when they saw what was happening in Israel and Palestine, because you amplified those voices, you who claim to be tired and fatigued, many of them looked at it and they said, I don't believe it. I can't afford healthcare and he wants to give 14 billion to Israel. I can't afford, you know, a home or I'm struggling and he wants to give 14 billion to Israel. No way am I accepting that. And that's why Biden is now mobilizing desperately to find people, masjid, Muslims who will sit with him in order to reassure him that he can commit genocide and not be punished. It's why the Israelis are shadow banning your accounts. It's why the Israelis are trying to restrict #Palestine. It's why the Israelis are spending billions on adverts about how they're going to make Gaza look like the new Dubai. It's why the Israelis are desperately trying to get CNN and New York Times to perform PR services. Who saw the article today? Thomas Friedman. He says, looking at the Middle East like the animal kingdom. When the IDF, they bombed the Jabalia refugee camp, they killed 400 Palestinians. When the IDF commander told CNN that, yes, we did it, the CNN commander was so horrified, he forgot to ask the next question. So the CNN editorial team came together. They said, we can't say that the IDF admitted it. What are we, mad? Let's say explosion kills 400 Palestinians. New York Times said, that's not good PR, guys. We can do better. Blast kills 400 Palestinians. And they couldn't even confirm if they killed the Hummus commander. BBC said Palestinian Londoner loses 42 family members. There was a joke on Twitter. I was like, let's send out a search party then we'll find them, inshallah. The point here being is that when you look at the changes in the policy, the ICJ ruling, the calls for a ceasefire, David Cameron saying that we need to immediately start a process for a Palestinian state, the Spanish breaking ranks with the US, Australia breaking ranks with the US, ICJ judges breaking ranks with the US. When the Daily Express, a right-wing paper in the UK, says the US is now a joke, or no one takes the US seriously. When the US's own team at the UN goes to Biden and says, we beg you don't use your veto again because we're becoming a laughing stock. Ibadallah, who brought about these changes? Who is making these policymakers buckle? Who is changing the course of foreign policy? Who is exacerbating the differences between these allies? Who is making Europe and America become more further apart? It's not the leaders or the governments. It's you being loud. I asked the French diplomats, what made Macron call for a ceasefire? I swear to you, Wallahi la ilaha illallah. Do you know what they said? They said Macron would go to his palace every day and the employees would say, Monsieur Président, s'il vous plaît, please ceasefire now. And then he'd go on a tour to Marseille and he would hear, Monsieur Président, ceasefire now. Then he'd go to the people of Toulouse, they would say, Monsieur Président, ceasefire now. Then he'd go to Bordeaux, Monsieur Président, ceasefire now. He'd go to Calais, he'd go to all these other different places. And then he went back to, and one day just said, for goodness sakes, he called the media, let's do an interview. And he said, I'll do a balance. I'll call for a ceasefire, but say Israel has the right to self-defense. Everybody jumped on the ceasefire comment. And because the French are notoriously arrogant, Macron felt that since everybody says I called for a ceasefire, I'm French, I can't roll back on it. Go hard or go home, and I'm going hard. Khalas, we want ceasefire as well. Literally that simple. I want to give time for questions and answer, but I want to bring it home with this particular point. Ibadallah, some of you may underplay the value of your voice. The reason I find that fascinating when a Muslim underplays the value of their voice is that the Muslim, in the halaqah that very evening after making that statement, will read the hadith, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, convey from me, even if it's just a verse. And everybody will say, MashaAllah, Sallallahu Alaihi Sayyidina Muhammad. When you read the hadith, the emphasis is not on the ayah itself. The emphasis is on the walau. Convey from me, even if it's just a verse. Meaning, Ya ibadallah, if you have nothing else to contribute to a cause, don't be silent. Convey even if it's just a verse. Even if it's just a word to raise awareness for it, do it. Don't be an ummah that's quiet. Don't be an ummah that's silent. Don't be an ummah that waits for the power that it wants. Use the power that you have. Don't be an ummah that waits for the power you think it needs. Use the power you've been given, knowing that if you use it, Allah will increase you in that power. Muslims will say our voice doesn't matter. And in the halaqah that same evening, they will read the hadith. مَا رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. He or she, I know in America you have gender issues and pronouns and stuff. Inshallah it stays within your borders. You guys are trying to export that stuff. Views expressed are the speaker's own. Not those of the organization. Prophet Muhammad said, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. Those who see something that is wrong, let them change it with their hands. And if they cannot, not if they don't want to, if they cannot, if they don't have the power to do so, then condemn it with your words. Denounce it with your words. Raise awareness, talk about it, put pressure on it with your words. And if you cannot, then condemn it in your heart. And that's the weakest of faith. The Muslim will read the hadith and say, MashaAllah. But won't realize that the Prophet ﷺ is saying that your voice is not the lowest form of resistance. It's an elevated form of resistance. The Muslim will say that we are powerless. And in the halaqah that evening, they will read about the story of Nuh alayhi salam. And they will celebrate. They say their voice is useless, but they will celebrate that Nuh alayhi salam gave da'wah for over 900 years. And they will say, MashaAllah, look how Nuh alayhi salam kept giving da'wah. They won't look down on Nuh alayhi salam, even though he doesn't convince the majority of his people. None of you dares to say that Nuh was wasting his time. None of you dare say that Nuh's voice didn't matter. None of you dare say why, because you know that's not the correct conclusion. You know that even if he didn't convince the majority of his people, you know the value of him raising his voice, because you know Allah appreciated it and Allah gave him the victory when he punished his people. You will read that story and say, MashaAllah, and the next morning you will say, our voices mean nothing. This is what I mean by an ummah that reads but doesn't read. That contemplates but doesn't contemplate. That looks at an issue and says, MashaAllah, but implements the opposite in its daily life. And that's the point I'm emphasizing here. What caused the shift and the difference in Gaza, this unprecedented shift, is the voice of the ummah that roared. Is the voice of an ummah that moved. Is the voice of an ummah that chose to mobilize even when it didn't have the powers it wanted to have. Is the voice of an ummah that said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Gaza, a genocide is taking place, and I need something with which to show my face to you. And all I have is this power, I will use it. And let me tell you what happened. You took one step towards Allah, Allah took 10 and amplified your voice. You went walking to Allah and His way, He came running, according to the Hadith Qudusi, and elevated those voices. And that's why now you have Biden panicking, Blinken panicking. When you tell me you're tired or that you're feeling fatigued, the reason I'm baffled by it is that how did an ummah bring all this change and change public opinion and then claim that its efforts didn't bring anything? Why is it that an ummah on which Israel spent 6 billion to silence claims that that voice that they spent 6 billion to silence has no worth? Ya ibadallah, if you don't want to accept your own worth, then at least give a valuation to your voice of 6 billion, which is what Israel spent to silence you. On a market, IPO, New York Stock Exchange, the value of the Muslim will say, our value is 0. The Israeli is saying, no, it's not 0, it's 6 billion at least. The Ummah is saying, our voice is nothing, it's useless. Why is it even on the IPO on the New York Stock Exchange? The Israeli and Blinken are saying, it's worth 6 billion, but because they're getting louder, now it's worth 10 billion, we need to spend even more on the PR. That's why sometimes I make a semi-joke, even though I'm semi-serious, that Blinken and Netanyahu believe in the power of Allah more than Muslims do. Blinken and Netanyahu believe that the Ummah has power and they are spending money to restrict it. But the Ummah itself is looking and saying, you're spending all that money to restrict, where is this power that you're scared of? And that's why, when you read the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he says that one day you will be like the foam of the sea, the Prophet doesn't actually say you become weak. The hadith makes no mention of strength or weakness. The Prophet ﷺ says that Allah will remove the fear of your enemies from their hearts. Because you will be afflicted by wahan, which is the love of the dunya, love of comfort. And you will fear sacrifice, you will fear death. The point being, he doesn't say the Ummah becomes weak. The other interpretation of the hadith is that the Ummah will have power, but will not be willing to do the sacrifice necessary to deploy that power. That the Ummah will always have the tools to make a difference, but that one day the Ummah will not be inclined to sacrifice what is necessary to deploy that power. And I don't necessarily mean by sacrificing your lives, I mean sacrificing by putting yourselves in uncomfortable situations. There is an imam in New Jersey, even though he doesn't like me saying Jersey, but New Jersey. Because when I went to New Jersey, no one actually says Jersey. So that all those Italian gangster films led me into a false, I went to New Jersey and I said, oh my God, this is like Goodfellas movie and all these others. And don't watch it, by the way. But in any case, and I was like, yeah, I'm in Jersey. And he went, really, bro? Like, no one says it here. And I was like, so why did you do it in the movies? Anyway, there's an imam, he told me a story in the car. And he said to me, Sami, you know what I think? I told him, what do you think? He said, Islam is inherently a problem. Astaghfirullah. What's wrong with you? Taqillah. How can you say Islam is a problem? He said, Wallahi, Islam is a problem. He said, hear me out to the end. I told, there's nothing you can say that can justify such a statement. He said, Lahla, wait. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, first 40 years of his life, does he suffer any persecution? What's his reputation amongst Quraysh? Sadiq, Ameen, trustworthy, loved, spoiled but in a good way. When he'd come, they'd say, the noble son has come. Come Muhammad, sit with us. When did his problems begin? When he stood up and said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and demanded that justice be implemented in his society. The moment that he raised his voice, he was raising it before, but the moment he demanded that society had to change, the same way we're demanding that society has to change to see the justice of the Palestinians, that's when he felt that pressure. That's when he started facing that persecution. The reason I link it to the hadith about the Ummah never being weak and it's a matter of sacrifice is that, let's be honest, many of us are scared if we raise our voices, we'll be sacked from our jobs. We're worried that if we tweet about Palestine, someone will send it to our director, he'll sack us. Or we might be ostracized. Or we might have difficulties in airports. Ya Rab, please don't give me any difficulty in airports, Ya Rab. So far so good, alhamdulillah. Gulu Ameen. If you don't want to see him again, don't say Ameen. Adi, no problem. Ibn Khaldun says that a civilization lasts 3 generations. And this is his reasoning. You'll understand the link here. The first generation is poor and has nothing to lose. So because they have nothing to lose, they keep struggling in their lives because their normal life is struggle. So they develop a characteristic that enables them to achieve extraordinary feats and they establish a state. They're capable of the spectacular because they're used to struggle, and therefore they're not deterred on the process of greatness, of which struggle is the process. The second generation lives half its life in struggle, half its life in prosperity. The reason that generation is the golden age is because they lived in the struggle, they know what's required for the prosperity. So even in prosperity, they keep sacrificing because they know that's what's needed to uphold the prosperity. The third generation is born in prosperity, having never felt or lived through the struggle that resulted in the prosperity. And so they're disinclined, because of the comfort, they're disinclined to do any struggle that is necessary to uphold the prosperity, and they end up losing the prosperity because they don't go through the struggle. It's like when our parents, and some parents will be here as well, for example, our parents, at least my family, they came from Tunisia, Algeria to London. And they worked hard, mashallah, to create a life of comfort for us so we might, pursue new opportunities that they weren't able to pursue because they were struggling to establish the foundations. Which is why when I said I didn't want to do law, my mother would say, I struggled and I did this and I did that. And she repeats all that list. And we've all had it, right? Your parents say to you all the time, I cook and I clean and I do this and this is the result. You want to do football career. This is really like we all have it, right? Because they realize, because they're saying that they struggled to create a prosperity for you that you don't appreciate. Ibadallah, the ummah is not weak. Rather, the ummah is deciding whether the comfort is worth compromising for the sake of a greater goal. Whether comfort is worth compromising to punish a genocide. Whether comfort is worth compromising to establish what is just and right. Whether that hesitation, and some of you will think Sami goes around talking, rah, rah, and then he gets to go back to London. I'll be honest with you, I also hesitate as well. Everything's being recorded, subhanAllah. One wrong sentence. You know what I mean? Like I don't have the heart to say, can you edit that part out? Can you edit that part out? Every word you have to be careful. You'll be like, Sami, beware, don't make this joke, don't make this joke, don't say this statement, don't use this word. Say hummus, don't say, all these things. Hummus is for the algorithm, because if you say, you won't say, huh. In November, upcoming November, the views expressed are the speaker's own. They're only the speakers. They have nothing to do with anybody over here, except maybe Ahmed. I'm joking. Anyway, Ahmed has nothing to do with me. He doesn't. I won't say your surname, so that in any case. Your choices in November are tough. But there are choices that you make before, which are in the primaries. Now, I don't mean the primary today where Biden won in South Carolina. That's like a presidential primary. That's different. I'm talking about primaries for your local representatives. Some of you are saying that we don't have ideal representatives to put forward. Ibadallah, that misses the point. The reason why Muslims are not on the same level as the Zionists or the Black Caucasus, shout out to the African Americans, is because the Zionists, their power doesn't come from their ability to deliver candidates. If their power was only delivering candidates, then the candidate would win and then betray the Zionists. The reason the candidate doesn't is because the Zionists have another power that is unique, which is the ability to punish. If you don't do what we voted you to do, we will punish you and ruin your political career, even if it hurts us. We'll punish you first, then talk about how to replace you. The only other ethnic minority that has the ability to do that is the Black Caucasus. In South Carolina, they're quite significant as well. They were worried about the black vote here, but Biden seems to have got an easy pass on this particular round. This is the first time in US history that the Muslims potentially have the deciding vote in November. Because when you look at the swing states where Biden is behind, it's as if Allah could have chosen any state. He could have chosen any state where Muslims aren't a sizable population. The 6 swing states where Biden is behind that will decide the next election just so happen to be the very states where there is a significant Muslim population. Now I accept that sometimes Muslims, as a result of inferiority complex that you might have, I don't have it, but you might have it, that when Sami says it, you might not believe it because I look like you. So I'm going to bring you Sahih Axios and Sahih Political. Axios says that, quote, if Biden loses even a sliver of the Muslim vote, in Michigan or Pennsylvania or Georgia or these swing states, Biden loses. Political reports that if Biden loses 100,000 votes in Michigan, Muslim votes, Biden loses. That's them saying it, not me. This is the first time that the Muslims have the ability to punish a candidate. To let it be known that you can't get a second term in power if you commit genocide. Some of you might be thinking, if we punish genocide Joe, what will happen afterwards? There are two strands to this. The first is, when the congressperson comes to see you as a community, they don't do the research beforehand because you're not an important vote at the moment. Because you're very disorganized. I just read a tweet before I got up saying Biden might have a chance to win over Muslim voters if he shows some empathy and ends the genocide now. 30,000 killed and still he has a chance. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. In any case, when the congressperson comes to see you, they don't do research about you beforehand. They do research on the way. So in the car, they tell their secretary, give me something that will make the Muslims go wow. So the secretary will go, how do you make Muslims go wow? And it will say, they have a greeting, it's As-salamu, as-alaykum. As-salamu, as-alaykum. Okay? So that he'll stand here, he'll say, As-salamu. Everybody goes, it's actually As-salamu alaykum, but thank you for trying. And he'll get excited, he'll go, Mubarak Eid. You were like, it's actually Eid Mubarak, but I have a theory, and I could be wrong. I have a theory that if Genocide Joe is punished in November, again, the views expressed are the speaker's own. If Genocide Joe is punished in November because the Muslims refuse to reward him for a genocide, and if the good folks of South Carolina invite me for Ramadan next year, maybe Ahmed, maybe will come, inshallah, you know. Because when I went to San Diego in California, it was raining when I arrived. SubhanAllah, it was sunny from Phoenix all the way to the outskirts of San Diego. We drove. As soon as we entered San Diego, it just poured with rain. And I said, everybody kept telling me San Diego is the most beautiful place you could go, like California. And I said, SubhanAllah, I need to start thanking Allah for the weather, because if I thank Allah, He will give me the sunshine. But because I keep complaining, it just gets worse everywhere I go. If you invite me for Ramadan next year, inshallah, I'm not hinting at anything. I believe that when I enter your Taraweeh prayers at the back, the congressperson, I'll find him there. Not because he believes, but because he wants to show solidarity with the Muslims, because they punished Genocide Joe. I'm worried they might punish me. I wouldn't be surprised if next year the congressperson stands here and he says, folks, As-salamu alaykum. He knows it properly now because he knows your votes matter. You punished a sitting US president. We gotta go through this together. Because as your Prophet Muhammad said, إِنَّمَا عَمَلُ بِنِيَّاتِ. And then somebody will say, oh, you know, you drop your water in excitement. You're like, he actually said the hadith. And then he realizes he's on a roll. He doesn't want you to punish him the way you punish Genocide Joe. So then he will say, and we got a long road ahead of us, and it's tough. But I know Muslims, إِنَّمَا usri yusra. It's plausible. It's plausible. I've seen, Muslim representatives go to synagogues and say Jewish phrases. I've seen it, it's true. Why? Because you punished Genocide Joe, but not only that, you also used another power. You identified your local candidates in the primaries in the areas. And you identified not who you should put forward, but you said, okay, in this area, there are two candidates. One was for a ceasefire, one was against the ceasefire. I don't know anything about the guy who was against the ceasefire. But Mu'allim, because you stood against the ceasefire, we're all rushing to give you our votes. And then the other candidate, when he loses, says, I was supposed to beat him by a landslide. What on earth happened? And they will say the Muslims went and voted for him. But it has nothing to do with them. Yeah, but they mobilized because they wanted to punish you for genocide. And he will come and apologize to you and say, guys, it wasn't that. It was just hard, If I said anything, the press would have been on my case. But it won't happen again. Please don't do it again. We can work together. It's true. Wes Streeting, who's an MP in London, in Redbridge, in East London, wouldn't call for a ceasefire until the Muslims put forward a candidate and they all rallied around her. He only has a 5,000 majority. The 2 days after Layan Muhammad was announced as the Muslim candidate in a constituency with more than 30% Muslims, he went on LBC and he said, we need a ceasefire. And people said, he's just worried about his 5,000k. So Muslims, if they punish Genocide Joe and they look at the local areas, they map it out with the data. The Muslims, they say, we don't have enough numbers to put a candidate forward, but we have enough numbers to punish the one who asked for a ceasefire. to punish the one who refused to ask for a ceasefire. Your whole image will change. You will go from being a community that they visit, just before the elections, to a community they actively engage in. Now consider the opposite, that Genocide Joe wins the second term. Views expressed on the speaker's own. Nothing to do with the organization. I'm analyzing as a political analyst. This is part of my job. It is part of my job. Anyway. Genocide Joe wins after committing a genocide because the Muslims were so scared of the orange man that they decided to go and vote for Genocide Joe because he showed some empathy after committing a genocide of 30,000, because he launched a pathway to a Palestinian state. Not a recognition, a pathway. This has been Salman's language in preparation for normalization, that we are normalizing in exchange for a pathway to a Palestinian state. Do you think any congressperson worth his time will come and visit you? Do you think any representative will come? They'll say, should we go visit the Muslims? No. A genocide of 30,000 and they still voted for the guy who committed the genocide. These people have no self-respect. Why should we go vote for them? Some of you will say that Trump will be worse, Trump might be worse, and what ifs. And that is possibly true. I'm not selling you a false dream here. I'm not telling you your next 4 years are going to be pleasant by any stretch of the imagination. And I am speaking from a position of privilege. Because after this is over, I'm going back to London. And though some of you might say that he led us into disaster, I won't feel an ounce of regret, I promise you. I would not. I would just say, well done guys, you punished Genocide Joe. But we're struggling, but struggling with dignity. Keep going. Oh really? That would be my view. Yeah, honestly, like you're struggling with dignity. Not only that, you'll be struggling in big houses. With big TVs, mashallah. With big driveways, on big roads. Really? You'll be struggling over a big portion of chicken and waffles. You'll be struggling while you're putting the syrup on top. You'll be struggling, while you use your car, you press the beeper button to find where your car is and it starts blaring. In your nice car, mashallah. May Allah increase you in it. But that's how you'll be struggling, in my opinion. Because as Hind Mekki wrote in her tweet, Muslims survived 4 years of Trump. 30,000 Palestinians did not survive 4 years of Biden. I'm not here to sell you a false dream. The next 4 years will be difficult. 100%. If Trump wins, Trump is promising to do, some people say worse. But to be honest, Trump said, we're going to censor the campuses, right? Is that not what Biden's doing already? Trump said we're going to deport those who are defending the Palestinians on the campuses. Did Biden not revoke the visas for some of the students in some of the campuses? Trump says that we're going to stand by the Zionists without any compromise. Is that not what Biden is doing right now with the genocide? 100 plus days and 30,000 Palestinians are killed. It sounds like you're differentiating based on makeup, not based on substance. Biden makes you feel better about it because he tells you, inshallah. Trump doesn't bother. I'm not saying to vote for Trump at all. What I'm saying is, if you accept that the next 4 years are going to be difficult, ask yourselves how you want to survive those next 4 years. Do you want to survive as a community where it said that he committed a genocide and the Muslims made sure and set a precedent in American politics that if you commit a genocide, your political career is finished, and the proof is the Muslims, they toppled Genocide Joe? Do you want to be that kind of community that I can be proud of? Or do you want to be in a community where the world says, dude, did you see those Americans? 30,000 Palestinians. And still they went and voted for Genocide Joe. Oh, no wonder the Ummah is humiliated. Truly Allah is not oppressive to His believers. That's what will be said. Whether it's true or not, only Allah knows what the hikmah is. I'm not telling you things will get better. What I'm telling you is this. This is the final point, I promise. You made the difference. I actually don't believe there's such a thing as an ordinary Muslim, and I'll tell you why. How can a Muslim be ordinary when Allah the Almighty Himself has established a personal relationship with you? How can you be an ordinary Muslim when Allah has told you that if you move, I amplify your efforts? How can you be an ordinary Muslim when Allah has given you a direct line of communication? How can you be an ordinary Muslim when Allah says, I will elevate your status if you do private acts with me? That if you pray tahajjud, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. And in the nighttime, do tahajjud, which is a private act. عَسَىٰ, Allah will give you an elevated status that will be praised publicly. There's no such thing as an ordinary Muslim. There are only extraordinary Muslims. And Gaza showed that extraordinary Muslims exist because they deployed extraordinary power and they brought about an extraordinary shift. an unprecedented shift in public opinion. They got an ICJ ruling, Israel is going to be dragged for 5 years on the charge of genocide. They made the Western allies fall over each other. They made the whole world, South Africa, go against the US to go to the ICJ. They made Biden impotent to the extent that he could not even throw the case out of the ICJ. And they made Biden fall in the polls by convincing non-Muslim Americans that they should not reward genocide. And Biden is now falling in the polls, and all suggestions suggest that if he goes to elections tomorrow, he loses not because of the economy, he loses because he supported a genocide. And the Ummah roared and let the Americans know. And the Americans, they heard and they said, what? He committed a genocide? Hell no, I ain't voting for him. You did that. You brought that about. You are the ones who made that difference. Don't tell me you're tired or fatigued. You're an army that is winning. You're a people that are winning. You're a people making the change. Allah has decided the outcome. The outcome is coming as He wishes on His terms. Maybe it is better for the outcome to come after the Americans are convinced about the legitimacy of the cause. And I finish on this. For those of you who say, but the genocide is still going, let me tell you, Allah has looked after the Palestinians. Allah says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا. Do not consider those who have died in the way of Allah as dead. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. They are alive with Allah, being blessed already. They don't go through punishment of the grave. There's no walking these distances where you see no mountains. And then they tell the angels, we've been walking for years. And the angels say, no, you've been walking for a couple of days. They don't go through all of that. They don't wait for their book in the right or the left. They skip all of that. We are the ones who might have to go through that. They skip all of that. They go, فَرِحِينَ بِمَا أَتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ أَلَّا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Allah is saying that they are with Allah and they are calling out to you who haven't reached them, that we no longer feel fear. We no longer feel pain. We are happy with what Allah has given. Allah is telling you that I have dealt with those who have died. I have given them the ultimate eternal happiness. But you who remain here, Allah has decided the outcome. Are you going to sit down and do nothing? Or are you going to wrestle with each other to be the vehicles through which Allah will bring that outcome? Because wallahi, 5 months ago, I never ever thought the American public opinion would turn against the Zionists. I'm seeing it today. I thought in my lifetime I would never see Israel on trial for genocide. They're on trial today. I thought in my lifetime I would never see a US president being punished for genocide. I'm seeing it today. I thought in my mind the Americans would never give a damn what happens outside of their borders. I'm seeing them care today. I'm seeing the shift in public opinion. And I'm seeing it that it's because my ummah chose to move, my ummah chose to mobilize, my ummah chose to keep moving. So the only thing I have to say to those who feel tired or fatigued is move, ya ibadallah. Move, don't be an ummah that does nothing. Move, don't be an ummah that gives up. Move, don't be an ummah that's silent. Move, be an ummah that does, even if you think it's insignificant. To Allah, it's significant because Allah said, وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى. Those who do even an atom of a good deed, Allah sees it. Take that first step. The first sign of rain is a drop. أول الغيث قطرة. The first sign of a rain is a drop. You keep moving and you will see. And you want the greatest proof. Some people always think that it has to be a great example. Ibadallah, I was sitting in London. I had no idea I'd be here. You moved, I moved, Yaqeen moved, Thinking Muslim podcast moved. We all moved within the powers that we had. Do you not see how Allah is tying our efforts together? Do you not see how Allah is bringing our paths together? Do you not see how Allah is tying all those efforts together in order to amplify it in such a way that there is a consensus amongst every analyst that the greatest threat to genocide, Joe, today is the Muslim vote. Not because of the Muslims themselves, but because they're convincing non-Muslims as well. Ibadallah, you have the choice in November, inshallah, to suffer 4 years in dignity or 4 years in humiliation. But the greatest victory will be this. The world will say that the US president committed a genocide and his political career was finished because Muslims, they chose to stand for justice because they didn't become an ummah where the comfort led them not to struggle. They're an ummah that said, wallah, we might live in comfort, but we are ready to sacrifice that comfort for the sake of the justice of the Palestinians because we are one ummah, we are one body, we roar together, we move together, we win together, and we stand together. And barakallahu feekum. I don't know how we want to do Q&A. Do we want to do it? If we have time. I know I went on a bit. I'm really sorry. They keep telling me to behave and, you just feel like I need to get the idea out. 1, 2, 3.
Is there one more microphone here? Can you all hear me? Yes. Well, first of all, I want to thank Brother Sami. He was talking about American football. Where are you going? So in American football, when there's an intense play, a very hard play, the coach will take out a handful of players and put a handful of new players into the game. And when the handful of players come out, they will sit down and the staff will give them an oxygen mask so they can breathe and get the oxygen they need, and so they can go back out on the field for the next play and fight again. You all know what I'm talking about? That oxygen mask? You are like that oxygen mask. MashaAllah. You are like that oxygen mask. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Thank you for inspiring us all in this beautiful way. Not only are you that oxygen mask, it is like in that oxygen mask there's not only oxygen, but there is some steroid in there. Like doping. Okay? But in sports that is illegal. But you are legal, alhamdulillah. Whatever you give us, inshallah, is like the oxygen on steroids, inshallah. Inspiring us, motivating us, inshallah, for us to do the right thing, inshallah. Give this man some waffle and chicken with syrup on it, inshallah, when you drive him home, inshallah. Okay, enough joking here. We have some questions, inshallah. There is Sister Faria, is that you?
Oh, mashallah. The architect of all this.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll bring the microphone to your sister.
Alaykum, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, very good. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for bringing me here. She's the one who reached out and arranged everything, mashallah.
I just want to show you guys all the power of social media that he's talking about. It's just good for me to send him a message, and he's like right away. And, subhanAllah, this is the Sunnah Prophet Muhammad that to be acceptable. So I was really touched with his humility. What important for that. I just have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
The first question is that the folks who do not use social media, how do they play their part in amplifying voices? The second question is that all the news sources that you look at, they're not really accurate news. So what are some of the alternative, like when you get up in the morning and you want to find out what is happening, what are your news sources that you can suggest, so you can find the actual, the real news?
Jazakallah, barakallahu fik. In terms of those who don't have social media, I'll tell you an interesting story. I was in Atlanta in Georgia, and after I finished the talk, a 75-year-old man, he came to me and he showed me his Twitter account or X account. And he came to me and he said, Sami, I've been blocked. So I looked and it said, you've been suspended 3 days because we think you're a bot. I told him, Haji, what happened? He said, Wallah, I listened to your video, you told me retweet, like, and we made a difference, and I wanted to be part of it. So I called my grandson, I said, set me up a Twitter account, X account. I said, okay, and what happened next? He goes, I did what you told me to do. I retweeted, I liked, everything. And I was like, oh, did you tweet anything though? He goes, what would I tweet? I said, that's why they think you're a bot. You have to tweet something. He goes, what do I tweet? I have nothing to say. I said, just tweet good morning and good night. Like every day, like Adi, like just, I was very touched by the idea of, we always think it's the younger generation who make a difference. The older generation are also trying new things now in terms of moving forward. But for those still who don't have social media, don't underestimate all forms of da'wah. When I made the emphasis that non-Muslim Americans are now changing their mind because of the Muslim da'wah, I've been to places where I've heard stories where students, or even some of the older generation, they will go out and talk to their neighbors, and the neighbors will say that Israel has the right to self-defense and to commit genocide. And when they were telling me a story that apparently some of the elders, they said, okay, do you know how much money we Americans, because I know you guys say we Americans, which I think is phenomenal, mashallah, because you are Americans, it's true. You are Americans. We Americans spent however much billion on Iraq. What did we get? The guy goes quiet. We spent this much billion in Afghanistan. How much did we get? The guy goes quiet. Vietnam, guy goes quiet. He goes, what do we expect when we give 3.8 billion out to the Israelis? And the person responds and said, hell yeah, why are our taxpayers like tax money go? Not only that, did you see the Republican primary debate where you saw Republicans saying, why are we funding foreign wars? Have you seen even amongst the Republican, the right-wingers in their podcasts or the like, saying we should stop funding things that are abroad now. Whether it's Israel or the like, we should stop funding it because it doesn't bring any benefit to America. It's not an America first foreign policy. We've seen that. The point is, everybody has a certain set of skills and they're put in certain environments and they are best placed to decide how to deploy that power. I've seen people, for example, in tech companies who have mobilized the Muslims in the workforce to get Zionists removed from monitoring positions. So that the tech company doesn't get dragged into the whole support genocide or whatever. I've seen them mobilized inside, including those of the older generation of the like. The point is that those who are not on social media, and to be honest, I said older generation. I've met some youngsters who aren't on social media either. You know those woke ones? I don't do social media. I'm above that. They're really isolated and secluded, but whatever they want to believe is fine. The point is that there are many ways you can push the narrative of the Palestinians aside from social media. I'm saying social media made the difference in that it broke Israel's monopoly over the narrative. It bypassed mainstream media. CNN and BBC and the like, they were putting out headlines, but nobody was watching it. Everybody was watching social media instead. That's why social media had the huge force in terms of putting forward. But for those who don't have social media, go and collect the data of the candidates who are standing in your primaries and let the Muslims know who support the ceasefire, who didn't support the ceasefire. Go and take cookies, bake cookies with Palestinian flags, and go and take them and explain to people what it is, and try to engage with your neighbors. They might be hostile first day, they might be hostile second day. You never know how they will change. The point is, nothing is insignificant. And sometimes you often find that one strategy will fail, the second will fail, but you'll come up with a strategy on the third time that will work. The answer to your question is, I don't know what's the best way moving forward. But I know that you who live here know the best way forward. You know how to communicate with your community and channel your Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu. Channel those who went to Sa'd ibn Mu'adh in Medina. And Sa'd Mu'adh says, if you don't convince me, I kill you. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr said, well, hear me out first. The point is, he was in a society that was aggressive towards him. Mus'ab ibn Umayr debated them, talked to them, discussed with them, showed them the information, shared the content, showed the videos, all these other things. I know some older generation don't have social media, but they do have WhatsApp, because they share WhatsApp like mad. Every theory they're sharing the WhatsApp. And bear in mind, I confess, I'm also one of those who does forward WhatsApps as well. Not the stories about, oh, Dajjal is alive and Mahdi is already here and that stuff. I mean like that. But the point I'm saying is everybody knows their capacity and what they can do, and only they know the answer, like deep down themselves. In terms of news sources, I read what everybody else reads. The difference is the lens through which you interpret that news. I read what everybody else reads, but the difference is the lens through which you interpret the news. Why, how, what, when, and you put that, you map it out. Why are they saying this now? Why did Netanyahu say we reject a two-state solution? And this is not the time for elections. Why did he say that 2 days after BBC reported that Blinken met with Yair Lapid and met with Benny Gantz? We both read the same news. You read it as two separate incidences. I read it as Blinken went to Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz and suggested elections to get rid of Netanyahu. And that's why Netanyahu made the statement to say they're trying to pressure me into elections. I'm not holding those elections. The difference is the ability to analyze that news. And you can learn that. You can learn that. You can learn it by reading the Seerah as a political book. You can learn it by reading the book Road to Mecca by Muhammad Asad. You can learn it by reading the book Inescapable Questions by Ali Izetbegovic, which is a story of a Muslim president of Bosnia who navigated a genocide of his own that was committed against the Muslims in Bosnia. And he tells you the heart-wrenching considerations he had to make behind every decision. It helps you to analyze. Fourth, learn the stories of the Ummah about what's happening elsewhere. And you will see parallels in their stories with what's happening with you here. That's why we study history, so we can see what's happening before us. The difference is in the lens through which you analyze the news. We all read the same news. It's just whether we understand it or not. And we ask Allah to give us the wisdom to understand it. But you can learn these things if only you made a little bit of effort towards it. I know that was vague, but that's the best way I could have answered it. Sister, do we go brother, sister, brother? But we can go sisters first, yes.
Sister.
Sorry, brothers.
This inspiring speech. So a lot of Muslims are conflicted in this country as to whether they should. Most people don't want to vote for Biden, but people also don't want to vote for Trump. So what are your thoughts about not voting at all?
Personally, I get asked this question every single event I go to. Personally, I couldn't care less who you vote for. The reason being is that somebody said, what if our votes go to waste? The issue I have is this. If I say Cornel West, Syrians will get upset because Cornel West was accused of giving statements that suggested sympathy for Assad. Even though I think he didn't exactly do that, but I know the leftists have this anti-imperialism thing, which sort of clouds their judgment on the analysis of Syria. If I say vote for Jill Stein, some wise crack in the Ummah will be like, yeah, but Jill Stein's never going to win. Akhi, we know she's not going to win. That wasn't the point. So why are we voting for her? Suddenly the debate shifts from punishing Biden to Jill Stein, and it just distracts from the main cause that's over here. I think that the vote for the presidency, in my opinion, views expressed on the speaker's own, this is just analysis. I think the point of the presidential election is to punish Biden. You don't have to vote Trump, you don't have to vote, whatever, just make sure your vote doesn't go to Biden, or you can even put #Palestine on the ballot paper. Where you vote, if you really want to, so you know like Verizon, they give you packages, basic package, upgrade package. Basic packages, just don't vote for Biden. And vote for whoever you want after that. Upgraded package is to look at your local areas and rally your numbers behind the candidates that supported a ceasefire, who without your support will definitely lose, but with your support might win by 1,000 votes. I've been to areas in America where the deciding number of votes in the last elections was 1,500 votes. In an area with 12,000 Muslims, of which 600 voted. I've been in areas where Muslims can flip it, but in those areas, when I went to give a talk, I found that they were still trying to encourage people to register to vote. And I said, subhanAllah, Biden is worried that Muslims will vote for other people aside from him, and many Muslims haven't even equipped themselves with the weapon that Biden fears. It's a frightening thing. So I think the vote for, to answer your question shortly. The vote in the presidency, in my opinion, just make sure Biden doesn't get your vote. I've met some Muslims, and I think it's quite an extraordinary thing, to be honest. I can't get my head around it. I've met many Muslims who say we're voting Trump anyway. But to be honest, when they say it's because Biden made me poorer, Trump made me richer. Okay, whatever makes you happy. I think for the Muslims to do maximum damage, it's at the local level. I don't have the data for South Carolina. I don't know where you'd be able to do it. But I do know that certain places do exist where you have the potential to make a difference. If you can identify those before March the 5th, because March the 5th is those primaries, and if you can identify those before February 20th, I think it is, which is the deadline to register to vote, I think that you can deny Biden the presidency, so you can punish Biden in the elections, and if you're really clever about it, you can deny Trump the House. You can get a double hit. You can punish Biden in the elections, because remember, the Muslim is not Democrat or Republican. The Muslim is not either party. The Muslim is based on the cause. That's what drives us. That's what Muslims are. Ali ibn Abi Talib said that the truth is not determined by who says it. So if a sheikh says this is right, it doesn't mean it's right. Rather, the truthfulness of the sheikh is determined whether he stands with what's right. It's the cause that elevates, not the people who determine the cause. That's what Muslims are like in the elections. I understand that there is an uneasiness. Like I said, before I stood up here, I was looking at the Twitter and I found somebody who said, yeah, Biden, Muslims don't want to vote for Trump. If you show some empathy, throw us a bone, stop the genocide, maybe give us a way to a Palestinian state, we might forgive the genocide, which I think is a horrifically humiliating stance. I understand people are scared about Trump, and legitimately they're scared of Trump. I understand it perfectly. Guy is, although in foreign policy terms, although he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, yes, he did kind of mess around with the American military apparatus and sort of paralyze them in the region. Whereas Biden sort of, brought it back together. I don't know if you guys have read James Jeffrey, his interview with Al-Monitor. James Jeffrey was the US envoy to Syria. He said when Trump was in power, every single day he was asking us, why on earth are we in Syria? Why are we in Syria? Why are we in Syria? Why can't I just bring the troops home? Why are we there? And he said that Trump was always on the phone to Erdogan and he would believe Erdogan over us. Listen, at the end of the day, only Allah knows where the khair is. The enemy of today might be your warmest ally tomorrow. I'm going to say something slightly blasphemous for the Muslim community. But let's be honest, the Democrats are trampling all over the Palestinians and committing a genocide, right? I know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the first 13 years of his da'wah, he would spend the Hajj season going from tent to tent to hear who would hear his message. And they would laugh at him for it, the Quraysh. Has anybody spoke to Republicans? Has anybody spoke to local Republican representatives that, given that we know that Republicans are having a debate inside themselves as to whether they should keep funding Israel. I know Trump is making statements and the like, but I do know, listen, I don't watch Tucker Carlson. I promise I don't watch Tucker Carlson. I swear to you, I don't watch Tucker Carlson. Don't judge me. But I saw a clip of Tucker Carlson where he's asking, why on earth are we giving all this money to Israel? I've seen Republican candidates say, why are we giving this unfettered support? That shows there's a debate there. That's all I'm saying. Is there room to exacerbate this debate? Is there room to push it? Is there room? I'm not saying go and ally with Trump. I'm saying that just as we converted Americans into pro-Palestinians where yesterday they were Zionists, is it truly impossible to find, just as you'll find some Democrat allies who called for a ceasefire, could you not find Republicans as well? So that in the same area, you can deliver a Democrat and you can deliver a Republican. Because your foundation is not based on the party, it's based on who stood for Gaza. Some might say, but we don't want to be single issue voters. Listen guys, there's single issue like education, and then there is single issue like genocide. There is no comparison between the two at all. And that's why I think that given you've shown the ability to convert the public opinion through your da'wah, if you accept that the next 4 years are going to be difficult, you have nothing to lose. I'm not pro-Republican by any stretch of the imagination. All I'm saying is, in the elections, we're sorted. No one votes Biden, vote however you want. But in the local elections, can we cause a shockwave with our newfound allies who are now pro-Palestinian as well? Can we make genocide the main cause through the social media? I'd love to see innovative ways in which you'd be able to do that, inshallah. Apologies if that wasn't the answer that you wanted.
Brothers and sisters, it is getting very late. We'll have one more question, inshallah, and then we will conclude, inshallah. One more question, inshallah. Okay, we will have two more questions. There was a lady also ready. Are you able for two more questions?
By the way, don't let him emotionally blackmail you. I have no time limit.
This is, mashallah.
It's his fault.
We'll do two more questions, inshallah. I'll start here, and then I'll come over to you, inshallah.
As-salamu. That is actually one of the technical questions proposed. I don't remember his name, but it is one. My question to you is, why we don't have something like APAC? So the Muslim community is wealthy, from the U.S., the Jewish Zionist community, they have APAC. Why we don't have something like that? Where we can funnel a lot of money by ads and influence elections.
How do I answer this in a way that sounds dignified?
Can I just follow on this question? Not only in the United States, but even in Europe.
Yeah.
Because the ABAC actually, their influence not only in the US,
Yeah.
also in Europe as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if you want to take the next question first. I'll save this one, so I'll type it down. Why do Muslims only invest in charity and not institutions? Wa alaykum as-salamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
While we're spreading Palestine, we also spread Islam without seeing I'm sorry, I'm very sick and tired of what is that thing on your head? So can we find a way to do it without seeing extremist or wrong person?
Jazakallah khair. In terms of the Muslim pacts, I'll tell you something very interesting. I've told this story many times, but there's no problem in telling it again because I think it goes to the heart of the issue. In the UK, US goods can be expensive sometimes because of import tax. So when I had the chance to come to the US, I thought, let me run wild. I'll just buy the things that are more expensive in the UK. One of them was Timberlands, the shoes. So I called Sumaya, my wife. I told her, Sumaya, I'm going to go today to buy Timberlands before my talk. She goes to me, no, don't do it. I said, why? She goes, they support the Zionists. And I went, oh. Now before you judge me, the Prophet Muhammad, when he was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to leave Mecca, to go to Medina, he left Mecca, but as he was leaving Mecca, he looks back at Mecca and he says, Wallahi, you are the dearest land to me, and if your people had not driven me out of you, I would never have left. His heart is broken even though he's following Allah's orders. Some of you might say, how did you bring that example for Timberlands? For those of you who think that, you should check yourself, because what it means is, you only go to Allah for the great things. I believe Allah is involved in even the mundane things. That's the difference between us. That's why you found it strange, and I don't find it strange. The principles apply to everywhere. In any case, after I spoke at Berkeley, you guys call it Berkeley, we were eating with some students, and a student asked me, how are you finding the boycott? And I said, to be honest, I'm finding it hard. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not finding it hard in terms of the willingness to boycott. I no longer think of filet fish anymore. Especially after the McDonald's guy came out and said that, our share prices are dropping because the boycott is actually working. And he was upset that people are punishing McDonald's because of their support for the Zionists. And I thought, mashallah, even I didn't think the boycott would have an impact. I was doing it for, like the weakest of faith, just to do something. I didn't know it would actually have an impact, but subhanAllah it has. And Starbucks share price is probably, even though their coffee was never good in the first place. But now, alhamdulillah, we've got these Yemeni coffee places popping up everywhere. Mashallah, they're filling the gap. And their adani chai is way better than anything that you can. Even their coffee is better. In any case, he said to me, so why are you finding it difficult? I said, I'm finding it difficult because the goods that I can't buy, I'm struggling to find the Muslim alternatives. I can't find the Muslim alternative or Timberlands or the like. And he said, why do you think that is? And I think I had a eureka moment. Just bear with me on this one. The Prophet Muhammad said that Allah loves the hand that gets the rizq for itself, and that hand is better than the hand that takes charity. The Ummah of today, what it did, it read it in a halaqah and they said, MashaAllah. And then subconsciously it added to the hadith. They said, Ya Rasulullah, it's true Allah loves the hand that gets this rizq. But we want to add to it that gets this rizq from law, medicine and engineering. Because Ya Rasulullah, Allah might love that hand. But when I'm sitting with my brother in the house and he tells the family, my daughter is a surgeon, you want me to look him in the face and say, my son makes shoes? You want me to look him in the face and say, my son makes shirts because Sami said he doesn't want to wear Marks and Spencer, he wants to wear, so he decided to make shirts because some guy from London couldn't find an alternative. Ya Rasulullah, it's true that Allah loves the hand, but because my brother doesn't love it, I want it to be a specific hand. You realize the subconscious wiring there. The reason why that relates to the Muslim pact, it's true that you have resources, but your reach in the industries are limited. Muslims are prominent in tech, they're prominent in law, engineering and medicine. The Zionists are prominent in every single industry. The Zionists invest in their companies 10 times, they'll fail 11th time, they create Google. We invest once, and then we swear never to invest again, and then tell the community not to invest in him either. We read in the halaqah that the Prophet ﷺ sent Khalid ibn Walid to a tribe, and Khalid ibn Walid anhu transgressed. The Prophet ﷺ had a hadith where he says, Allahumma, I'm innocent of what Khalid has done. The Ummah of today would have said, oh Khalid, the Prophet has a hadith about you, You're never leading an army again. Cancelled. Boom. No one is dealing with you. The Prophet ﷺ, Khalid ibn Walid made tawbah, he sent him back with the army. There are little things in the community that if we just tweak in terms of perspective, will allow for initiatives such as the Muslim pact that you're looking for, to become like APAC. Because APAC are divided internally, but united externally. We are divided internally and divided externally. And a lot of that has to do with those perspectives. And that's why I think a Muslim pact, if you punish Genocide Joe, I think that the natural consequence is a Muslim pact, because the Muslim will finally be convinced they have power, they will be convinced they can deploy that power. This time the power was not what they thought, which was to deliver representatives. They realized there's power in punishing as well, and they will set up a Muslim pact that is designed to punish those who fail to uphold justice, and that pact will eventually evolve into something that becomes a powerhouse like APAC. That's how I see it moving forward. That's how you build those kind of organizations and those kind of institutions. I think we're on the verge of a Muslim pact. I truly think we're on the verge of a Muslim pact. Why? It's the first time I see a unified voice in the Ummah, in America, in the UK and beyond, where Muslims are finally saying, I'm ready to sacrifice my comfort to punish genocide. I'm ready to sacrifice my comfort to punish Genocide Joe. And you know the fascinating thing about sacrifice is sometimes when you're ready to sacrifice, Allah doesn't even take the sacrifice. He gives you the reward without the sacrifice. What do you think the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is about? What do you think the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is about? He goes through agony trying to reconcile the idea of sacrificing what's dearest to him. The moment he reconciles it, the moment he says, Khalas, I'm ready to sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a democratic way, in the American context. I'm not preaching anything that's beyond that. Because we can punish him through votes. We don't need any other tools, don't worry about it. The moment Ibrahim alayhi salam is ready to sacrifice Ismail, Allah tells him, because you are ready to sacrifice, I no longer need the sacrifice. Ismail can stay with you, and I'm going to elevate you in terms of your honor and give you the reward on top. That's the thing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I argue it's a matter of perspective rather than a matter of actual act. It's a matter, when you shift it, you realize Allah will open those doors. So to answer your question is this. The first step to establish a Muslim pack. Let's make some goals. We have an army, but we need some skirmishes to convince the army we can do something. Find those places in South Carolina where the Muslims can make the difference. They don't need a candidate. Just make the difference. Deliver. Maybe even just punish the guy who supported genocide. Support anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. When the Muslims see, oh, wait a minute, we did it. Go then punish Genocide Joe. Wait a minute, we did it. Guys. I grew up believing Ummah was weak, but we actually did it. Like whoa, we did it. Like, what do we do now? You're building. Why? Because you are pursuing something that is just, and Allah elevated you in it. In terms of the idea of spreading Islam and having the hijab on your head and being chastised for it. The reason I gave the verse of the da'wah earlier is to show great sympathy for the fact that Muslims in the West, we do get a lot of heat. When I was in university, or college as you guys call it, although for us college is the 2 years before university. So when you guys say you're in college, I think, oh, how young, inshallah. I don't actually think you're in university. But in any case, when I was at university, you know, I played for my football team. And we did really well in the first season, and you know, alhamdulillah. And we decided to go play against universities abroad. So first year we went Turkey, Syria, Lebanon. Second year we went to Ghana. And the third year they went to Palestine, which changed a lot of their perspectives on Palestine. The reason I mention that is, Umar ibn Khattab said, a man stood before me and said, bring me somebody who knows you. So he brought his friend, the guy he drinks coffee with. And he said, have you traveled with him? He said, no. Have you dealt money with him? He said, no. He goes, go. Bring me somebody who knows you. When I started with the team, we were all very good, banter, laughing, everything. When we traveled with each other, first day it's, oh, that's lovely that you pray. You pray 5 times. Oh, it's really nice what you say in the prayer. Second day. So you have to do that every day. Third day. You think you're better than us, don't you? And you feel that pressure. The way that I believe to address it is not to dream of an environment where you don't have that pressure, but equip yourselves with how to resist it. For example, I read the book Road to Mecca by Muhammad Asad when I was 18, just before I entered college. And in this book, there's an incident where he passes by a Palestinian farmer. And he sees the Palestinian farmer praying, and he's not Muslim yet. He's still an Austrian Jew. He walks past him, and almost like in a mocking way, he said, you do all these actions in your prayer. What does your God need with these actions? Why don't you focus on the spiritual side like Hinduism and Buddhism? And he says, the farmer, very basic guy, didn't finish education. Without skipping a beat, he replies to him and says to him, he finishes taslim and he says, God created body and soul, right? He says, yeah. He goes, how does it make sense to worship with half and leave the other half? So I read it and I thought, okay, that sounds philosophical. In my first year at university, I was posed the exactly same question in Turkey. Sami, why do you pray like this? Why do you think you're better than us? What makes Islam different from when I do? I was being serious, but in any case, yeah. And I said to them, they said, what does God have to do with these actions? Why don't we focus on the heart, the spiritual? Be a good person, they said. And I didn't know how to respond. I was 18. All my life, I was only interested in trying to become a football player. And then my mom said, you can't. I said, khalas. I was decent, I was good at it as well. I played semi-professional for a stint as well. So, when they asked the question, I remember Muhammad Asad's book. I was like, God created body and soul. how does it make sense to worship with only half? And I promise you, sister, the whole room went, yeah. And I went, whoa, it works. Go back to the book. The issues about, between Europe and between the Muslims. He argues it began with the Crusades. That was the first traumatic memory, and that embedded it. You memorize those pages, you start reading it to them, and they're like, oh yeah, that's actually interesting. Yeah, Sami, you're well read, And I was like, Muhammad, I said, I will never forsake you. I have him now on my Google books. On the planes, I read it, just like for a reminder, because he's very good at contemporary issues. The basic answer to your question is this. Muslims in the West will always be under pressure with regards to identity. But do you know the reason why Islam is the fastest growing religion in the West? It's because when they put you under pressure, they come to you with a face seeking to pressure you, and they leave with a face saying, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Because when they go to challenge you, they find that there's actually substance there. That there's actually a Quran, there's actually hadith, there's actually seerah. There's actually an understanding of the deen. There's actually an appreciation. They won't agree with you, but they will say there's something admirable about a people who wear that Islam with pride. Which is why I gave the example of the girl earlier on TikTok, where she saw the Palestinians' resilience and she decided to open the Quran and go through one page every day. It took her 2 weeks. She didn't have an imam to guide her. It took her 2 weeks of going through pages in the Quran, and she said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad. She goes, this is it. Like, this message resonates with me. And that's why I think a lot of it has to do with those who tend to be worried about the pressure are those who are worried about their lack of knowledge or ability to convey Islam. You don't need to be a alim to be a da'i. What you need is to be able to understand the arguments that are necessary. And that's why I argue that when you read these books, Road to Mecca, Muqaddimah by Ibn Khaldun, Inescapable Questions by Ali Izzat Begovic, even the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in the way that Sahaba, there's a lot to learn from it when you read it as a political book, in the way the Prophet sallallahu addresses those who are against him. Because what the Prophet ﷺ shows you in the seerah, in my opinion, what changed my perspective on da'wah was, they would laugh at him when he had no power giving da'wah, but at the end of the story, they all respect and love him, even though he's the same as he was in the beginning in terms of his da'wah. The same kindness, the same gentleness, the same way he speaks to them, the same way he forgives, he's the same at the end, but he wins their respect for it. Abu Sufyan, when he stands in front of Heraclius, he's told by Heraclius, describe me the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He says he was of such good character, and the public opinion has shifted so much in Quraysh, I couldn't lie in front of my two people. I hated him, but I knew he was wise. I knew he was just. I knew he was that kind of. If you carry that character, you don't know what will make the person become Muslim. It might be an act that you did on Ramadan that they saw, they said was amazing, and they couldn't get out of their head. For Benjamin, he was looking for an ayah to challenge Bihar, and he came across the ayah about the skin, and he said, I can't get this out of my mind. You don't know. The point is that in this environment where we're under pressure of our identities, say alhamdulillah for it, because it's in this fire that you're in that is forging the steel with which you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And believe me, I can't lie to you. I give you the example of the body and soul thing. It's amazing when the arguments work. And it's amazing when you have faith in them that they work. And it's amazing when after all of the arguments, they come to you at the end and they say, you know what? We don't believe in this deen, but credit, Sami, at least you hold on to your guns. Not like that Muslim over there who gave up to come and join us in the nightclubs. And you're like, whoa. Why are you guys looking down on him? Because he was raised on principles and he abandoned them. I accept that I abandoned my principles. But why is he doing it when he has a better way of life? I say, alhamdulillah, Allah didn't make me like that guy. Read, learn, educate. Start with the book Road to Mecca. Go use those arguments. And when you're excited, go read the next books, inshallah. I don't mind, but I'm aware people are getting tired. Go ahead.
I have a question, but I have just to quote you on something. What is Brother Nabil? Brother Nabil is here. Just to quote Brother Sami, I was like waiting for him to say, but he didn't. So I will quote what he said in a lot of his videos. We might not see the change.
Yes.
Us here, all of us, we might not see the change. Okay? But don't let that discourage you from keep moving and move on. Keep going. Believe what you believe. And do what you can. And leave the rest to Allah. That's it.
MashaAllah, I could. We got to come to a conclusion. It's getting very, very late. I can tell this brother would be here with us all night. He has no limits. And that is a sign of him being genuine. That is a sign of his heart. That is a sign of his sincerity, mashallah. We are very indebted to you. I think I can say on behalf of the community, which I may just represent here for a second, We love you for the sake of Allah, inshallah.
Barakallahu feek. Barakallahu feek.
Thank you so much. Thank you, brother.
Barakallahu feek. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. Tomorrow at Isha, inshallah, we're continuing our lecture series on Palestine, inshallah. That will be at the masjid in Taylor's, inshallah, along Whitehampton. We had a very